All this talk about toxicity in the gaming community, we thought it'd be a great chance to discuss some of our experiences and some of the internets with online gaming communities and give some good and bad examples of toxic communities, as we've given before earlier. When I looked into this topic, it became very clear that regardless of how wholesome a community is, there will always be some realm of toxicity. Every single wholesome pick on here has some bad juju. And we plan on giving you the good and the ugly with each of these situations. But in that same regard, even some of the most toxic communities, there are players, like you said, that you can build that support structure, Brahman, and hopefully, you know, that do give hope that the minimum moral standard of society can be maintained in that kind of environment. But with that said, here's some of the good, the bad, and the really fucking toxic. We are going to start off with some of the really fucking toxic, and why not start off the countdown with one of the most notorious ones, which is Call of Duty. Call of Duty is one of the most popular first-person shooters out there. No offense to COD players, but the fetishization of military mixed with the fast-paced realistic violence is a cesspool for every Chad and simp on the internet. In-game lobbies and voice chat. If you have the in-game lobby with voice chat active, it's not uncommon to have literal children screaming slurs of all kinds into your ears for any kind of offense, killing them, getting killed by them, having too high of a kill-death ratio because you're cheating, or having too low of a kill-death ratio because you suck,
breathing,
so on. Right, you know. Players will go even further, advocating for murder and even rape in situations when they are frustrated. Hands down, one of the most toxic communities in gaming.
Yes.
Robin, have you had any experiences with Call of Duty at all?
No, I would not do that to myself.
I know that Jake has. Jake, you've had plenty of experience with Call of Duty.
Yeah, I've played some Call of Duty. It honestly, it's just one of those things where like you just like I said, I started playing at a young age, so I've gotten used to getting berated with like, you know, racial slurs, homophobic slurs, like all kinds of stuff, and just kind of like gaming through it, if you will. And like, I know it sounds bad, but it's like, it's almost like, you know, you get a filter and you're just like, oh yeah, cool, you fucked my mom, cool, awesome.
Yeah,
you know, like
you're just letting the insults fly by like the bullets.
Yeah, water off a duck's back, you know what I mean?
Yep. Well, that about sums that up as far as a toxic community. And we've used it as many examples earlier on because it is just one of the most common ones that most people know. But speaking of common toxic communities that people are very frequently talk about, and speaking of first-person shooters, you wanted to talk about another community, which was Halo. Tell us a little bit about that, Jake.
Yeah, Halo Combat evolved to possibly infinity. You know, and that's not just the numerical, just like it just means like every Halo ever made could be one of the most toxic communities. Because before Chad swarmed Call of Duty lobbies, Halo was home to some of the biggest assholes in video games. I haven't fact checked this, but I believe it's where the teabag originated. You know, where you could kill an enemy and then just sit there and just drop your ball sack on them real quick. Like, it was one of the first lobbies I remember being explicitly told that my mother was about to get some sweet lovemaking done to her. And, you know, it was one of the first places someone claimed to had fucked my mom. And so like I heard that she was gonna, you know, go on a nice date, and then I also heard that she was just gonna get ringed, you know, and it just cheeks clapped. And I was like, okay. And you know, shit talking's huge in the first person community, but Halo was the OG of OGs when it comes to garbage community standards. You know, like I remember when I first started playing Halo back in the day, and I don't want to really show my age too much, but like it was just one of those things where, you know, I don't think you really like, you just thought it was talking shit. And but you know, as we've gotten into 2020, I realized no, that was a verbal abuse.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's weird to still hear it in some video games to this day, you know.
Brahman, was this another first-person shooter online community that you avoided as well?
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame you. I don't blame you one bit.
Halo was toxic, man.
Yeah,
it was toxic.
I played a little bit. I just I never was super active in like chat or headset thing or anything like that. But yeah, I've played it a few times.
Halo was
I don't
crucial
blame
for callouts. It was so
Yeah.
crucial for callouts. If you got like good callouts, you could do a lot of damage. And so it was one of those where like every time you'd get in a game, you would be like, please God, let this be a good chat. Please let this be a good chat. But then they also had big team battles that had 8 versus 8, and at one point you would have 16 people in a chat at one time, and oh my God, those were just cesspools of just the worst.
See, like
no.
I mainly played just with people I like knew, so
Yeah.
it was never like that
Yeah.
bad. It was just like I was just like playing with a couple friends or something. Yeah, which I mean they could be mean, but it's okay because they're your friends. And you know that they love you. So.
Right. Yeah. You know, they're just fucking with you at the end of the day. The other
Yeah.
people, you know, it's like, hey, I didn't consent to any of that bullshit. You know. Well, we've got tons more toxic communities out there. Halo is just one of them. But there's one of the biggest ones that stick out are the MOBAs. More than anything else, for those of you who don't know what MOBA is, multiplayer online battle arena. I believe that's what it stands for.
Yeah.
And you, Brahman, wanted to talk a little bit about League of Legends and that community. Tell us a little bit about League of Legends.
Yeah, so I've had good experiences within like playing it and within just me playing it personally and that community itself. But what I really noticed was when I went to the League of Legends Championship, one of the matches that they had out in their center and on the West Coast was just the total imbalance of gender when it came to the professional players. There was not a single female player on any of the teams, and there was a huge team roster. When I got there, I just felt like I stood out immediately. There were a couple other girls maybe just in cosplay, like at the event, but I really just felt like I stood out there. And I started looking into it after because I thought this is insane with how huge this game is. There's not a single female playing on a professional level. How is that even possible? And when I looked into it, I found that there was in fact a female player who Maria Crevelling, who is Ramelia, was her gamer tag. And she was actually the first transgender female woman to ever compete in the LCS. But she was subject to such intense and constant transphobic and sexist comments in every single match. Fans would dispute her gender identity. They wrote critically about her appearance. They bashed her abilities as a player. And a few weeks into the season, she removed herself from the roster and cited anxiety, self-esteem issues. She hasn't returned to LCS since. So that kind of, even though I didn't personally experience the toxicity playing the games, I was aware that it existed just from going and seeing the matches myself. And it's just really sad.
Yeah, that is really sad. That's, I mean, that's a very blatant example of toxicity within a community, especially when you chase out, you know, people who are competitive players, you know, competing on a stage high enough to, you know, I don't know necessarily, you know, she was in the championship series. I mean, that's competing at the highest level of that game, that wants to exit that series because of just the transphobic and sexist comments made by players. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah. Like it takes so much to get to that level, like to get there and to not be,
the training and everything that takes it to get there, and then just to end up dropping out, or not dropping out, but needing to bow out because of anxiety and all that, you know, because of just fans being toxic. Like, it's got to be terrible.
Yeah, it is pretty terrible. Well,
one of the most toxic.
Speaking of terrible, one of the most toxic communities out there, hands down.
We're gonna get to good things eventually, guys.
We are gonna get to good things eventually. Yes, there is a rainbow at the end of this pot of shit. But speaking of other toxic communities, speaking about garbage toxic communities, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Madden and why it deserves a mention on one of the most toxic communities. Jake.
Yeah, so I've got Madden, but let's be honest here, 2K, FIFA, and many other sporting game communities are just toxic hotbeds for toxic communities. And so one of the first messages that I ever got in a video game was a poorly written "you should kill yourself," and that was from Madden Online. I was probably about like I want to say like maybe 15, and like like playing online video games, especially Madden back in the day was it was really something that it was hard to pull off, but it was a lot of fun just playing someone that wasn't your best friend sitting next to the couch on you. But like, dude, it was brutal. You would always get messages, most of them telling you about how much of a garbage player you were, but not just that. Like, it was always personal attacks. One of the only games on this list that has actually led to a murder at a live event. The Madden community is just one of the many terrible sports sims communities. If you don't know about it, Madden had an actual, tournament in Florida where one of the contestants who lost a game went out to his car, got a gun, came back, and shot up the event. And it actually led to, I believe, one of the other contestants passing away. And so
that's what I would consider toxic.
The most ultimate toxicity of communities is ones where they actually led to a mass shooting. So plagued with toxic masculinity and fueled by preteen anger, Madden is world renowned for having a toxic community. And honestly, 2K, FIFA, and a lot of other ones are just not too much further down the line. The only saving grace of this game is the fact that it is probably one of the only last football sim games out there. So if you're a sports fan, it's one of the few things that you can play. And it is honestly a lot of fun to play with your buddies, right? Just couch together. But online and even the tournament community, I would highly suggest most people avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big sports ball fan, so I've never been into it, but I did used to play it back in the day when I was mostly what I'd play would be NCAA. For football,
which RIP NCAA too.
That was a thing back in the day. But that's because I like to play with the mascot teams or something. I don't know. I had fun with it, but I would never go online. And I know I've seen my brother go online before because he does love those kind of games, and it's definitely a very toxic community. Very, very toxic community. Brahman, you were talking a little bit earlier about some of your experiences with GTA, and it definitely deserves a mention on toxic communities. Tell us a little bit more about some of your experiences with GTA.
So that's where I've had my most experiences with personal experiences with harassment, and I love the game and I love all the single player stuff, but I was so excited when I first got my very first gaming headset, and I fired up the PS4. I was putting on GTA 5. It was I'm gonna do this online gaming thing. This is fun. Within one session, I was I'm never going back.
Oh no.
Not good. As soon as people heard my voice, it was I had a target on my back. I had people saying they would rape me. I had somebody actually make noises like they were pleasuring themselves
gross,
disgusting. Just being very crude. And granted, I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, what you're getting into when you're getting into this game. So I feel I have pretty tough skin. I'm I can I can handle this. No, it was beyond anything that people should deal with.
It sounds like it.
Or people would follow me around in the game. I couldn't get away from people. They would just start following me. And and anytime you do something wrong, or you make I don't know, you're not on your toes or something, and they just start attacking you for your gaming abilities. Oh, what are you doing here? It's come on, you've made a mistake while playing game before. You just didn't target. It's not that big of a deal when a guy does it, but when a girl does it, oh my gosh, why is she here? So
one of the worst gamers ever.
Stupid shit in video games.
Right? Everyone does stupid shit.
If you tune into my stream, you'll watch me. You'll watch the struggle bus leave every day. I am not good at video games.
Any guy that's ever played any first person shooter where friendly fire was on has had the moment where they go, "Hey, is friendly fire on? Dude, hey, what the fuck, man?" Like that exchange has happened a zillion times over, like
Yeah.
so
And
everyone
I'm
fucks
not
up on video games.
alone. I'm not alone in this. There was a study that was done last year, and over half of women said that they experienced sexism or harassment just based on their gender. The moment they revealed their gender or heard on a game, that they started experiencing harassment, and that's true. It was true for over half of the women who were surveyed, which is alarming and not okay.
Yeah, that's
not at
fucking
all.
awful.
Not
That
okay.
shouldn't be the case, but that is not okay. Well, one of the things that is also interesting to me, that I was looking into this, is that we found out that the gamers that exist in these toxic communities, some of the gamers that are the most persistent, some of the gamers that have the most, especially particularly female-directed aggression, usually have the worst stats. So they're awful at the game. So the funny thing to me about it is that most of the what this research shows is something that we've known all along, which is they do this shit because they're fucking terrible at the game. Yeah, and they have nothing better to do, or they're just shitty people. I don't know why people do this. It's hard for me to put myself in the mind of that kind of level of toxicity.
Frustration. If the studies show that they have low KDs, it's because they fucking suck. And so they want to like yell at somebody, and they yell at females mostly because like they can't stand the fact that like they have nothing else on them. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to like say that like, oh, look at me, I'm so mad. Like like they just have nothing to add to it, and so they lash out any way they can.
Yeah,
but
it's still super shitty, and I'm sorry for anybody that has experienced it. Sorry that you've had to experience that, Bronwyn. But luckily, not all communities are as toxic as these. And with this onslaught of bad news, we thought it'd be important to highlight some of the good communities as well. With that said, every single one of these examples, good examples, has some level of toxicity, and we wanted to make sure to cover that as well. So we're going to go through the good and the ugly here with both of these. But I wanted to start off with saying one of the communities that I've found that's been one of the most inclusive has been the Pokemon community. And I know that the Pokemon community isn't perfect, and it isn't always the best. I understand that, and I'm going to get to more of that at the end of this little bit. But it has hands down been one of the most accepting communities that I've been a part of. There's a strong majority of Pokemon players of color, a strong defense of LGBTQIA members within the community. Earlier this year, for example, I participated in Rose Tower VGC tournament. Okay, so just give you a little bit of background. This tournament was actually Rose Tower VGC is a competitive Pokemon series. They do competitions throughout the year, and everyone collects points, and then they have a championship at the end of the year. One of their last tournaments that they had right before this charity tournament, they crowned a victor. Guy was doing his thing, but he'd made a whole bunch of homophobic, racist tweets online, and the Rose Tower VGC said, no, you are stripped of your title, so you can no longer participate in Rose Tower. We're taking the prize money back. We're taking all your points back, and you've been jettisoned from the tournament, which is a great response, right?
Yeah.
But an even better response is they said, and instead, we're going to have a charity tournament this next week that's going to directly benefit LGBTQIA-related causes and causes related to BLM and the Black Lives Matter movement that was going on across the country at the time. And it's a perfect example of how the Pokemon community does draw a line at toxicity and says this is what we stand for. And it's pretty unequivocal across the board. I haven't run into a Pokemon chat room where I felt it out of place being bisexual and being open about that. And everybody's always been very welcoming of that. More so, it's definitely something that I feel like I could talk about more in a Pokemon chat than I ever would feel on a Call of Duty chat. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, by far.
Yeah.
Especially if you're comparing Pokemon to Call of Duty. Yeah, that's a vast difference in fandoms.
Trying to give some good examples of how like it's much easier in this one than it is that. But the Pokemon community still does have an ugly side. The Pokemon community has a vast age range, when with that a vast range of common sense knowledge and patience. Hackers are also abundant in the community, which is increasingly hard to track for a variety of different reasons. Another issue is due to the artificial scarcity of some items, Pokemon, and things, and due to the collectability of the franchise. There's not only price gougers, but there's also a small but loud crowd within the community that has become increasingly vocal about their complaints. You may know them in the Pokemon community as the Dexiters. They are a very loud group, but they have not slowed down Pokemon in any way, shape, or form. These members have had a tendency to harass other fans who are a lot more happy with what they get when it comes to the Pokemon Company. And despite the Dexter's best efforts, nothing that they have done has managed to slow Nintendo down or convince Nintendo to do literally anything.
Nice.
They've been pretty firm on their stance there, and the one of the big things that happened, Dexters, for one example, are part of the toxic community, and they really did try to see if they could boycott Sword and Shield because they weren't getting all 900 Pokemon in the game, and we ended up with like 600. There's still a.
But it's not all 900. That's it.
I think it's 800 actually. It's like we're like really close. It's like stupidly close. But it's not all 900. But anyways, Pokemon Sword and Shield is now, as far as Pokemon games go, and as far as Pokemon games sold goes, is third. Okay?
Yeah.
Red and Blue, Gold, Silver, and then Sword and Shield is right behind that in number of copies sold. That is a huge amount. They have not slowed them down at all. In fact, if anything, this last series, they've gained momentum. So, anyways, That's my big rant on toxicity within the Pokemon community and the acceptance within the Pokemon community. It's a really wholesome community. I've also met a lot of people. I mean, like, shout out to Echo Rose. I've given him a couple shout outs here on this podcast before. He's part of a community that I met within the Pokemon community where we just help each other out and try to figure stuff out, and we compete in tournaments, cheer each other on. It could be a pretty wholesome community, but there are some toxic elements in it, just like with every community. Speaking of wholesome communities that have some toxic elements as well, Stardew Valley is one of your picks, Jake. Tell us a little bit about Stardew Valley.
Yeah, so Stardew Valley, this game has probably one of the nicest subreddits that I've ever had the pleasure of visiting, with new updates that keep coming from the indie developer who built this game alone, sold it to scale, and then bought it back up, and then and then it blew up even more. Stardew Valley is what I call a certified banger. I love this game so much. It's so quaint. It's so wholesome. And yeah, like I said, like, it was made by this indie developer who then, partnered up with a much larger developer so that he could get this thing kind of scaled out, get it out there to them. Then it made so much money that he was like, you know what? I want this title all by myself so I can make free updates for people. And so that's what he does. He just drops free updates. And not only is this game great for your mental health, the community is super helpful. If you ever check out the Stardew Valley subreddit, you won't be disappointed. Not only are there a lot of really fun memes, but everybody there is very helpful in trying to get folks kind of started, teaching you new techniques on how to farm, and new ways to just kind of like enjoy the game. And Stardew Valley itself is one of those games that like has been out way before Animal Crossing was able to make its debut on the Switch, and so it really kind of like held down your Animal Crossing needs. And it also had some like little flair for adventures here and there. And so I think it's one of those really fun games that has a really wholesome community and a really awesome subreddit to boot. And so I think the really only ugly part about the Stardew Valley fandom, and I think this can go for a few other things on this list as well, is don't Google the fan art. Like many games on this list, some fans get a little too passionate about the games. And even though Stardew Valley has 8-bit characters, that doesn't mean that some fans haven't taken liberty in trying to, figure out just how curvy certain fans may be, or just how strong and jagged some other characters may be, how like just, their biceps may glisten.
Like you did Google the fan art.
What? No.
Seems like you did Google the fan art.
What? No. My internet.
Just
No.
for research.
Yeah, no, it was
Cutting
for
out.
research. Yeah, like I had to research it for this, episode. I was trying to look up bad things, and somebody was like, "Uh-oh, the fan art," and so.
So you had to go for a look. Yeah. Well, I feel yeah. That sounds like a good game, and it sounds like it does sound like a good community. Sounds like a fairly wholesome community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Did you ever get a
speaking,
chance to play Stardew Valley, Brahman? Or have
I
you heard
haven't.
of that before?
No,
I haven't heard of this.
I don't want to.
This is
It's sort of getting like Harvest Moon sort of vibes.
yes, yeah, it definitely gives off Harvest Moon vibes. Which, if you liked
I
Harvest
love
Moon,
that game.
you would definitely like Stardew
Yeah.
Valley.
And
Very.
I love that name, Stardew Valley. Like, ooh, I want to move there.
I
Oh,
know, right?
Stardew
That's
Valley.
interesting.
let me just, and I know we're running on time, but like it starts off with you getting a letter from your granddad who had just passed away, but he left you this little ranch out in the middle of nowhere, and he basically says, if corporate life ever gets you down, son, you can go move out to Stardew Valley. And so one day you're sitting in your cubicle, and all of a sudden you go, you know what? Fuck this job, and you move out to Stardew Valley, and that's how the game starts off. And I love that. I'm always like, yes, because it's every millennial's dream. We're all just like,
Right.
all just want to be like, fuck this corporate job. I'm gonna go be a farmer.
Yeah, let me get some
Yeah.
goats. Let me get some land.
Some cute cows, ducks. Like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Leave the city.
Right.
disturbing
Give
part.
me a farm where I can have my own chicken, cows. My partner can grow their own vegetables, and I can, do my thing and still have Netflix. I still have Netflix though.
And still
That's
be
the
able to
big thing.
stream.
Is that
Yeah.
it does allow for, if while you can get married in online co-op now. That was a new update that just came out, so you and your partner both can play and get married in it. If you happen to fall in love with one of the mini villagers, it doesn't matter what sex, gender, whatever you may want to be on the spectrum, you can marry anyone in the video game. So
There you go. There you go. Well, that's pretty good. That's very accepting, and that's good on them. Well, speaking of games like Animal Crossing also makes our list. The Animal Crossing has always been noted as one of the most friendliest communities for a lot of the same reasons that you hear about Stardew Valley. It's not super surprising that a game specifically designed around building a community has such a strong community. For the most part, Animal Crossing fans are typically great to helping each other out, sharing unique ideas, fantastic memes, and allowing for unique opportunities and connection in a post-COVID world. I mean, we talked about this before with the COVID situation of how people have had funerals and people have had weddings and people have had graduations and all kinds of good stuff in Animal Crossing. And it's really brought some sense of being able to be social to people in a reality where we've all been stuck inside our homes. Jake, I know you're a big Animal Crossing fan, right?
oh yeah,
Can you
love
play a little bit?
over 200 hours.
Over 200 hours.
Yeah, over
Brahma,
200
did you ever get a
hours.
chance to play Animal Crossing?
Yeah, I just mentioned in the chat I was playing Animal
yeah.
Crossing right before getting on here. So I actually hadn't played for a while. I've been just have had my Switch kind of sitting there and it was calling to me. So I opened it up. I had no idea how long it had been. So when I got to my island, I was really overwhelmed. I ended up just like rewinding time for a bit because I couldn't deal with all the weeds and everything. But
Oh Lord.
it's looking good. My island is still looking great. I rearranged some flowers. I've been like lining up, trying to crossbreed some flowers to get different colors. It's been doing well.
Yep,
This is good.
This is the first one I ever played, and I really am. I'm regretting not having played it for over a week now, and so oh my god, I do not. Like it was an anxiety beater, and now that Bronwyn brought up the weeds, I'm like, anxiety. I don't want to log in.
Oh, duh. All my weeds are everywhere. Oh no. Well, with that said, there are plenty of Animal Crossing fans who detract from the wholesomeness of the community.
That is true.
Many come from the difference in opinions on how to play the game, such as whether time travel or not is cheating, like if Bronwyn was cheating with time traveling back and forward. I'm personally pro time travel because anything that allows me to reenact any Doctor Who-esque fantasies, I encourage. So Additionally, with the ability to create items with custom art, there will always come issues with inappropriate designs. And another big issue that my partner was talking about was players stealing things from other players' islands, as another issue that people have had as well. But yeah, I haven't personally played it very much, so I think you guys probably are more familiar with it than maybe even I am. But so far, the reporting system I've heard works pretty well. And if the most toxic thing in your community is people nagging at people who time travel or stealing fictional items, then you're in a pretty good spot, you know.
Yeah, I have been a part of some of the cataloging events where somebody has stolen an item and then the person had to shut down the event, and it is sad, that somebody would do it because it kind of ruins it for everybody involved. But that's only really happened to me once while playing, and I've probably been a part of at least half a dozen, if not more, cataloging events on Animal Crossing online, meeting random people through Discord servers.
Yeah.
And so, it's overall a pretty wholesome community. But yeah, there are a few naggers out there about the whole time traveling thing. You'll get some people that are just like, hey, that's not how it's meant to be played. And, I'm a big fan of my system, my choice. If I want to do some time travel, I can. It's my save and it's not really going to affect yours. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but overall, great community with the Animal Crossing. I've got 200 hours in it, so obviously I love it.
Yeah. Have you had positive experience with the Animal Crossing community, Brahman?
I have. I've had a lot of great experiences, and it was really great because I got the game and even the system right at the beginning of the quarantine. So I was able to visit my friends' islands and even was hanging out with my brother over Animal Crossing when we weren't seeing each other in person. So it was great to feel that kind of community, like you mentioned earlier, like people throwing these events and having a space to connect, which goes into my conspiracy theory that Nintendo started COVID because of Animal Crossing.
That would make sense. It's a perfect plot to sell more
around the same time.
Consoles.
It's all adding up.
I kid, but it's been great. It's been a really good, game. Definitely happy feels whenever I'm playing it. Always happy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a game that you have noted gives you happy feels, at least, Elder Scrolls Online is another community that you put down as something that you've had some good experiences with. Brahma, can you tell us a little bit about Elder Scrolls Online?
Yes, I love Elder Scrolls, every game, and their community is amazing. I love this world and just how everyone has treated me within it. I've always felt an atmosphere of support. One of my first times playing online, I approached a stranger at an enchanting table and just asked them for help using the runes. And they ended up crafting me a rune for free, giving me a ton of gold to get started. And I thought that was really amazing. Not only were they willing to help me, but just go above and beyond to help me. And this
was a really nice situation. I don't think I've ever experienced anyone that nice in a gaming community. Really, hey, can you help me? And they're like, yeah, no, here's a handy dandy tool, and here's some gold to get started. Off on your way.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it's great, and just in reading other people's experiences, it's not unique just to me. The different subreddits are so supportive and really people looking out for their fellow players, answering questions respectfully, and just geeking out over this incredible world that they're able to explore and be a part of. There are even resources that are only made possible because of this passionate fan base. The unofficial Elder Scrolls pages is an ever-growing archive of in-game information and lore that I've used throughout playing not just the online games, but in playing Skyrim and Oblivion, having this resource and catalog that was completely made by fans for fans. I think that's really cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's the good. But there is some ugly. There's always a little bit.
Let's talk about the ugly. Yeah.
Well, it has, all the Elder Scrolls games has a reputation for excessive modding, which brings up it's not an attack on other players, but it brings up an ethical dilemma in regard to respecting the game itself, the fairness amongst the community, and just taking advantage of the game. So that's really present within the community. Also, while the subreddit seemed to be a really supportive place of camaraderie and positivity, the official Elder Scrolls Online forums have a different atmosphere. It has a lot more troll-like behavior that's present there. Also, some of the in-game chat zones, they're always going to have those kind of bad seeds or people who are trying to be annoying in the game.
Yeah.
But typically you'll see that
given the opportunity.
Yeah, given the opportunity. You'll see that usually in like the starter areas or the bigger cities where there's more people, like you say, there's more people congregating. It tends to be where you find, because there's always going to be people in the game that aren't the nicest. But I think overall it's a pretty wholesome community in Elder Scrolls Online.
Nice.
That sounds pretty dope. Yeah, it sounds pretty friendly for someone to, offer you resources to start off right at the beginning, and having that big catalog created by the community. Sounds like pretty solid structure for a healthy community.
I got to give it another try.
Yeah, you got to give it another try. Anyways, one of the other games we had on this list that Jake put on here, that Jake's going to talk about us for a second, is actually one that I've got a chance to actually watch a little bit on Twitch recently, and looks like a lot of fun. And I've actually had some personal experiences with people in this community that have been super positive, but you know a little bit more about it, which is No Man's Sky. Tell us a little bit about No Man's Sky.
Yeah. Oh, man. Dude, this game is a doozy. If you would have said that No Man's Sky in 2020 would have had a dedicated community of players that are devoted to this franchise, I would have laughed you out of town. The catastrophe that was Hello Games' build-up and release of one of the most ambitious games perhaps ever, led to a mass of players disappointed, underwhelmed, and seeking refunds. However, since then, Hello Games has been hard at work to justify the AAA price tag. Since the day of release, they have done this by releasing free patches to loyal players, and through this, the game has created a genuinely fully fleshed out and interesting game environment. Thanks to new and exciting new features such as base building and customizable options, not to mention that there's new generated worlds and different views for all players. And the fact that they actually eventually rolled out multiplayer, because when this game launched, the multiplayer didn't work. There was no such thing. There was this whole built up kind of hypeness that we were going to get this giant, huge multiplayer universe. But then it ended up being a bunch of nothingness. And then eventually, it did evolve into the game that I think a lot of people wanted at launch. And so... the community is a hub for players to share their own unique discoveries and journeys across the near infinite galaxies of No Man's Sky. The positive community is a product of one of the this positive community is product of only the loyalist players to remain from launch. And so a lot of the people that you talk to, whenever you talk to players from this community, they've been playing it since day one. And so while they may, hate, or a lot of people hated it right off the bat, they still was something in there that kind of said, this is a cool game and I like the idea. And they gave the studio time to make it better. And the studio did. No Man's Sky is one of the few games that I think the developers said, hey, we hear you loud and clear. We're going to go back to the drawing board and really, continue to build out more and more things onto this game. And they did just that. And the community has been super helpful. They've been pretty awesome. The subreddit's a lot of fun to go into and see some of the cool bases people have built, some of the cool things they've done on different worlds, and just to see where other people have visited, right? And so, but like everything on this list, there is a little bit of ugly. I said earlier, this game was a disaster from the beginning, and its community, but the community has been there from the jump. Newcomers might feel overwhelmed or even behind, but if you stick with it, you will find a community that's there to help you build and settle the universe. And so while it may feel overwhelming nowadays whenever you jump in, because there has been a lot added to No Man's Sky, and there is a lot to take in from the jump, The community's super helpful. There's a few discords. There's the subreddit, like I mentioned earlier, and most everybody's pretty helpful. And they all want to just help you figure out what you got to do to settle the universe. And so it really made a complete 180, 180 from its launch of which was a complete disaster.
That's pretty cool. And as I was saying earlier, Brahman, have you had any experiences in No Man's Sky at all? Have you got to check it out? Check out any gameplay?
No, I haven't played, but now I want to.
It's a really interesting concept, and I was watching a couple people stream it within some communities that I've been talking to, and it does look like a lot of fun. It does seem kind of like a much more peaceful game. Like you're usually just sitting there mining lasers, and I watched some guy running away from aliens most of the time, and that was running out of fuel in his jetpack. Like there's some fun situations you get yourself in, and it looks like a really wholesome community. They were super supportive. I knew them before as super supportive people before I knew them as No Man's Sky players, and they just happened to all fall into that category. So it tells you what their community's like.
Mm-hmm.
No, and it's one of those where you will go from one planet being a very Animal Crossing kind of chill I'm mining experience to the next one's full of sentries, and it's like hell on Earth, and as soon as you drill one hole into a rock, you've got 40 alien kind of robot things trying to kill you. And so it's one of those games where it can go from 0 to 100 real quick, so it helps to have a very supportive community around you.